Всім доброго дня, вітаю вас у треку B. До нас же приєднався Ігор Касіянов, наш наступний спікер. Якщо пам'ятаєте, то сьогодні на першій доповіді Олексій казав, що приходячи на System Design інтерв'ю, потрібно зменшувати скоп задач, які вам доведеться на цьому інтерв'ю вирішувати, тому що вам треба встигнути. У Ігора, мабуть, трохи схожа тема. Схожа, тому що потрібно зменшувати кількість фіч, які є у продукті, для того, щоб користувачі були ним більш задоволені. І я представляю з гордістю нашого третього спікера у треку B, це Ігор Касіянов, техлід-менеджер асерію у команді Preply. Ігоре, тобі слово, бажаю вдалої доповіді.
Дмитро, привет! Спасибо за представление и за объявление доклада. Я сразу скажу, что мой talk будет на английском, поэтому давайте начнем. So, as Dmitro already presented, my name is Igor, and I'm the product owner of experimentation and tech lead of SRE team at Preply. So I'm basically doing Preply stable and product development predictable. And today I would like to tell you several stories of our A/B testing journey at Preply. And I will share several tools and techniques that you'll be able to use already next week in order to maximize the revenue of your company and to decrease complexity of your project as much as possible. So as it's online conference, it's really tricky to feel the feedback from the audience. So I'll highly appreciate if you'll be able to share your thoughts, comments, emotions in the chat, either in the Discord chat track B or in the Telegram. I'll try to scan those chats during the presentation. And I'm going to ask several questions during the course of the presentation to make it a bit more interactive. So I'll appreciate your answers there. And let's try it out. Let's check, do we have all access to the chats? So, and the first question I have is, how much of us are actually familiar with the concept of A/B testing? So even though it's not the major topic of the presentation, it's important to ensure that we have some ground on this topic. So I would appreciate if you can put plus or yes in the chats if you had any experience with A/B testing, either in production or maybe from statistical class of university. Well, I see some pluses and some thumbs ups in Discord chat. Thanks for that, and that's great. And for those who aren't familiar with A/B testing concept, don't worry a lot. I'll briefly cover the concept in several slides forward, even though it's not the major topic of my talk. So before we start, as you may guess, that most of my stories will be based on our Preply experience. So I would like to share some basic information about the company so that you'll have enough context about stories that I'll tell during the presentation. And Preply, it's online and global marketplace for online language learning. So students came here to study different subjects like English, Spanish, Germany, etc. And tutors came to us to earn money. And our mission is to build an innovative learning space that will unite tutors and students. And I'll provide several numbers about Preply just to provide more information about it. So currently, we have more than 400 employees spread across 2 locations, one in Kyiv and another one in Barcelona. And with several millions of lessons happened on the platform during the year on more than 27 subjects, with 300% year-over-year growth, we have more than 7 years of extensive experience in A/B testing as for now. And right now on Preply, you can find more than 100 A/B tests running simultaneously, which basically means that there is no any two users on the whole internet that will see the same version of Preply. So keeping that in mind, let's start our journey. And I would like to start my presentation with a short story from aviation of the late 20th century. So please welcome, this is a Starship. This is beautiful, isn't it? And our story starts in 1979 when the Beechcraft, one of the biggest general aviation aircraft company, decided to build the new turboprop aircraft as a replacement to the former King Air model. They decided to build most innovative aircraft using all cutting-edge technologies that were available at that point of time. So overall, company spent several billions of dollars and more than 10 years of development to produce this aircraft. And in 1989, the first Starship rose to the air. So Starship was ahead of time by all the means. So it was comfortable, very quiet inside, it was fuel efficient, it was basically the first general aviation aircraft that had glass cockpit at that time. It was the first general aviation aircraft that had variable wing sweep. And at the same time, it was the first general aviation aircraft that had used so extensive use of carbon fiber composite in production. So it was by all extent the most innovative general aviation aircraft that by the time that all pilots wished to fly. But once the aircraft went to the market, it faced a tough reality. The closest competitor is a Piper Cheyenne that was by all means just a good aircraft that solves the main customer needs of comfortable transportation from point A to point B, was 30% cheaper and 5% faster. And it turned out to be that the speed and the cost was much more important to the customers compared to all innovations that Starship had. So from the from the historical point of view, the Beechcraft was a global milestone in general aviation aircraft production. From the commercial point of view, it was a complete disaster. The Starship almost bankrupted the Beechcraft company. But from the personal point of view, for all engineers who worked on the project for almost 10 years, who spent almost 25% of their career building the most innovative aircraft ever, it was a complete frustration. So once I worked on the feature for 2 months. Well, we deployed this on the production and customer didn't actually like it. The adoption of the feature was 2 or 3%. And well, it was unpleasant to realize that I spent 2 months of my life doing something that not actually needed to anyone. So for me, it's really impossible to realize the full spectrum of emotions of engineers who spent 10 years, the fourth of their careers, building the best aircraft ever, and in the end realize that their baby is not needed to anyone. And moreover, most of 20 aircrafts that were delivered to the customers, in the end were returned back and never fly again. So today I would like to share my vision on how we as engineers can protect ourselves to never ever experiment that level of frustration as engineers of Starship did. And yeah, I'm curious how many of us ask ourselves during our career, why actually I have to build this new amazing feature? Or maybe why I have to add the complexity to my beloved service just to satisfy the imagination of product managers. And well, in some cases, will not even know how it in the end impact the business. So yeah, please put plus yes or no if you had such experience or such questions to yourself during your career. Yeah, I see a question regarding Starship. Yeah, exactly. We have one Starship in the Zhytomyr airport, and that one of 5 currently airworthy aircraft. That's true. And yeah, I see the question why the presentation is in English. Basically because I know that not only Ukrainian and Russian-speaking engineers look in this presentation, so let's be inclusive there. Great. So I see some pluses, and that's great because indeed it's a good question that engineers with product mindset ask themselves, and that's where the conflict arises. Basically, it's a conflict between product managers who like to deliver more features and to earn more money, and developers who care about simplicity and stability of the system. But the problem usually comes with the fact that in the most companies, there is the product manager is the stakeholder of the team backlog and the decision maker what team will work on. So you can't just say, I'll not do it because he's a manager and, well, he knows what to do, right? So what I would like to do today is to empower you with a data-driven tool, which will help you to defend the simplicity and stability of your service and to ensure that you'll maximize the revenue to the company. So, as I promised before, I will briefly cover the concept A/B testing just to put all of ours on the same page. So here you see the 2 pages of Preply. And well, A/B testing concept looks like we do some change on our product, in our case, in website, and try to prove with leveraging the statistical rules that the new version bring more revenue or improve some business metrics compared to the old version. So on this page, you may see that there are at least 3 changes. So 3 A/B tests running simultaneously. First, we change the title of the page. Then we have the design of FAQ part of the page. And finally, on the bottom, we change the ranking of our tutors to check which ranking helps students to find the best tutor faster. And well, I guess those of you who have some experience with A/B testing, either from university or maybe from production, already asked themselves, so, well, what's new we can say about A/B testing? So 2 years ago, when we had more than 5 years of production experience, we thought similarly. A/B testing concept for us looks like very simple. You just run test, measure it, kilo scale, and that's how you do the business. We saw A/B testing as a simple wheel. You increase the product team, launch more A/B tests, earn money. But for the last 2 years of extensive work on A/B testing framework, we realized that in order to efficiently apply it in e-commerce, you should answer 4 major questions. So the first question is, what is the real value of what you're doing? So, well, you scale some positive tests, but does it actually help business to grow? And if so, how much it can help? The second question is there any neutral test? Because in A/B testing, significantly positive and significantly negative tests are the least fraction of all tests that you will launch. So what shall you do with neutral test? The third question is about, do we impact business by doing some technical changes? Because we are all engineers and we like to improve the latency or decrease number of errors, but can we somehow in measurable way capture how it actually impacts the business? And the fourth question is where we can save our energy and development to not even invest time in. So the first 2 stories will dive deeper into how we as engineers can gain enough evidence and data to drive the changes across the organization. And the third and fourth question will be more technical and focused on some specific solutions that we had at Preply. So let's start with the first question and how we can basically measure the whole effect of the positive test. And our story starts in the beginning of 2020. And to say we have a lot of curious people at Preply, and that's a great value you get by hiring and hearing new people who do not have blurry side of or get used to how things going for years. So one of our new employees just challenged us that what is the value of A/B testing? And he said that he does not believe in A/B testing. Well, our first reaction was quite simple. Well, you scale some positive tests, so you should expect that they should bring more value to the business. But then, once we thought a bit, we realized that there is no person in the whole company that will be able to answer the simple question: what is the return of investment of A/B testing at Preply? So we knew from one point of view how much money we spend on product teams, how much money we spend on development environment, on infrastructure, but nobody was able to say numbers about the total value, additional value we get out of A/B testing. So, well, for us it was a good problem to solve, and we decided to address this problem by leveraging the same rules of statistics and using scientific approach. So what we decided to do is we launched a meta A/B test. So basically we selected 10% of our audience and froze the website for them so that they saw the Preply as of beginning of 2020. And the remaining 90% of users were eligible for all changes, new features, and so on. So it was a rather simple solution, but definitely there were some pros and cons in this solution, and the pros were explicit. Firstly, by doing this holdout group, you're able to measure cumulative effect of all features that you scale during some period of time. In our case, we selected 1 year just to avoid some seasonal effect. And the second point, we were able to capture long-term effect of features that we scale. Because, well, usually when you launch A/B test, you run it for, let's say, months. But it's really hard to capture how it actually impacts the retention, long-term retention of your customers. And when you keep it for a year, you have much more chances to capture this change. But definitely there were some cons. And the main drawback was that by keeping old features in the code, you definitely increase the technical debt in short run, and you decrease the development speed a bit. Because you have to keep old versions of features that you scaled, and even if you do some technical change in A/B test, you should keep old version in the code as well. But well, it was a price we paid for understanding what is going on, and we were happy to pay this price. And in 4 months, after we launched this holdout group, the results became significant. Well, it was fabulous. In 4 months, we were able to prove that by doing some product development, we actually drive the business. And I'll share in a moment what was the margin of this boost, but maybe you have some guess on how much percent we improved the revenue of the company by doing this development and A/B testing. So please don't hesitate to share your guess in Discord chat or in Telegram chat. Okay, seems like no guesses right now. Don't hesitate. Don't be afraid to fail. 15% from the intro. Good guess. It's really flattering. Sorry, even more. Well, 30% in 4 months. I wish it would be true. 40. We're going upwards. Great. 20 is closer. Well, let's. Yeah, it's nice guesses. Thanks, folks, for sharing that. So 146. 40. Well, let's check the real number. You'll be actually surprised. 42 is a nice catch. Yeah. When we checked the results, it was significant. But the point, it was significantly negative. It was minus 4.5% in revenue. And we were super surprised. It basically means that in 4 months of extensive product development, we were able to harm the business by almost 5%. So it was crazy. The next few weeks, we dive deeper a lot in what's going on. And finally, we realized that, well, 2 months back, we introduced one severe mistake in our statistical ETL pipelines. And that led us to making a wrong decision on scaling on killing experiments. So we scaled bad experiments and killed good experiments. So we figured out what's going on, then we were able definitely to roll back and fix the problem and return this experiment to the positive track. But it was the learning number one, the very important learning, that we never know the actual value of A/B testing in our company unless we really measure it. And keeping that in mind, let's continue our story of how we iterated on our holdout group and answer the second question. What shall we do with so-called neutral experiments? Experiments that you don't see proof from statistical point of view that is actually improve the business. So closer to the end of 2020, we were on positive track and closer to the numbers that you shared in the chat, but it was significantly positive, so it was great. But we had another problem. The actual result that we had was 5 times smaller to the expected result that we would expect if we would just sum up the average result of each A/B test we scaled. Of course, you can't just claim that those A/B tests are pure additional to each one. But, well, 5%, it's a huge difference. And we decided that we have to dive deeper and understand where this discrepancy going from. The first thing we did is we checked what we actually scaled during the course of the year. So out of 100% of scale tests, which is 300 tests that we scaled during the year 2020, only 30% or 100 of tests were actually significantly positive, and we were able to prove that they actually helped business to grow. Remaining 70% were just inconclusive from statistical point of view. So we did a step in, and out of this 100 or 30% of significantly positive tests, we selected 10 most impactful tests and decided to relaunch them as one big experiment to check what would be the impact of those 10 most impactful tests. And results were surprising for us. The incremental boost of those 10 most impactful tests were 3 times higher compared to the result of all 300 tests that we have scaled during the year. So doing very simple math, we come up to that conclusion. So if we have 300 of tests giving us X% of boost, and 10 of them give us 3X boost, it basically means that the remaining 290% give us minus 2X% boost. And that led us to the lesson number 2, that there is no actually neutral experience. So your experiment is either positive, significantly positive, and it helps business to grow, or it's inconclusive. And from one point of view, you can be sure that it adds complexity and potentially tech debt to your service, but at the same time, it could actually harm your business. So we did our homework, and in the 2021, we relaunched the whole holdout group with the new rules of approaching A/B testing. So now we try to avoid scaling inconclusive tests as much as possible. And as for now, when 8 months passed, but since we relaunched this holdout group, we have 2 times better added value out of A/B testing compared to the previous year. And our scale ratio decreased from 70% to 40%, which basically means we decreased added complexity to our service by almost 2 times. But to say most of those inconclusive scales are some tech refactorings and so on, so we were not actually expecting they to be significantly positive. So if you're talking about product changes, their scale ratio decreased even further. And what is most important, the expected boost, if we just sum up average values of all significantly positive tests that we scaled, currently matched with the actual boosts that we observed with a global holdout group, which basically means that we were able to extract as much value of product features as possible and haven't diminished boost of others by scaling true negative tests. So now we have some tooling that helps us to evaluate the healthiness of our system and extract some data if we need to drive some changes and promote it to some product people. And keeping that in mind, we can go to the third question. What is the business impact of technical changes we are doing? So from most companies I saw, a lot of companies are ready to test product changes via A/B tests because they expect it should impact the business. But very rare company actually try to A/B test technical changes. But does it make sense at all? Does technical changes actually can change the business behavior? I would like to share 2 pull requests that we did in Preply for the last year, and then I will share results of the A/B test. The first one is about GraphQL API. So in Preply, we use GraphQL as a communication between front-end and back-end, so most of traffic goes through this API. And once we realized that the default JSON library of Python is rather slow, and we decided to replace it with UJSON, which proved to be approximately 20 or 30% faster for our requests. So the change was as simple as this one line, but we were curious enough to launch it as an A/B test, so you see the 4 lines of change there. The next pull request was about fixing the caching strategy in our Apollo client on React application. So we had some misconfiguration of caching. We decided to fix that, but again, we decided to do that via A/B test. So you see the line 251. This is a condition of A/B test. So before going to the results, I should say that for both of those pull requests, all unit and end-to-end tests were green. There were no errors in production in any APM or login system after we deployed that. In first case, latency actually decreased by approximately 5%. That was a huge success for us. And in the second pull request, cache efficiency actually increased, so we fixed that problem that we had. So I'll share the results in a moment, but let's try to guess what was the impact, if any, of those pull requests on the business metrics. So yeah, don't hesitate to share it in the chat, either Discord, Track B, or do it in the Telegram chat. Yeah, I see a couple of questions in the chat, and I'll try to address them just after the presentation, just to keep it in time. But if you have some guesses about what was the actual impact of those changes, don't hesitate to share it. Negative. Yeah, Dmitry already grasps the idea of the presentation that most of things going negative. Good point. Good point. Any other ideas? Plus 5% from Vlad. Good catch. No impact. Yeah, it's possible scenario, and I should say that in most technical changes, you actually have no impact. So, good suggestion. Harshly negative. Minus 10. Yeah, Dmitry definitely knows something. Good. Let's check the results. GraphQL positive. Not really. So, and it's significant for Martha. So yeah, let's check the results. Those are results for two tests. The first one about changing JSON library to UJSON. It actually drops the gross value of the company, gross margin value of the customers by 12%, with exposure of 93% of all users. So it was massive, 11% drop of overall company revenue. It was catastrophical if we would not launch it as an A/B test. The second test where we fixed cache, it was approximately 3% significant drop in GMV with 33% of exposure, which means that overall it could drop revenue by approximately 1%. And well, to be honest, I don't know which is more severe, because if you drop the business by 11%, be sure that business will come to you and will not let you go home until you figure out what you did. But once you drop the business by 1%, it's actually nearly impossible to detect without A/B testing. Because, well, 1% can explain by SEO traffic change, or maybe paid marketing campaign change, or whatever else outside of the company could happen. And now imagine for a moment you launch 20 of those improvements during the course of the year, and let's say 3 or 5 of them would be negative. It means that you can harm the business by 3 or 5% during the year and not even know about that. So that led us to the lesson number 3. That technical improvements could actually harm the business. It could, in some cases, it could actually improve business, but in some cases, it can harm the business. And even though those A/B tests we are monitoring manually, afterwards, we designed the system that helps us to detect bad A/B tests automatically and do some actions. So the system looks like that way. So we collect errors from Sentry, we collect status code from our Nginx ingress from Elasticsearch, and we collect latency of pages and user metadata from data warehouse. Then we process all this data in our A/B testing system and attribute errors and latency to different groups of A/B tests. And further, we stream this data in Datadog. And if we observe increased latency or number of errors in big group of any A/B test, we trigger on-call rotation, and then on-call engineer is able to react on that, debug what's going on, and potentially disable some A/B tests. And now I would like to share some non-trivial technical A/B tests that we had at Preply. It's not trivial because you can actually split customers on your side. So first things first. In the beginning of this year, Preply suffered from several DDoS attacks. And well, we decided we should protect ourselves, and the solution was rather simple. We can use Cloudflare or other CDN providers that helps to protect ourselves. But the problem was that once you add new additional layer to your infrastructure, it definitely increases latency. And well, if you increase latency by, let's say, 50 or maybe 100 milliseconds, you can expect that you can harm your conversion business metrics. So we decided to evaluate how much we can harm the business. The problem was that you should split users even before they resolve your domain name. So what we did on DNS level, or we updated our records TTL to 1 day, and we set different weights to different records. So we were able to route approximately 30% of traffic to Cloudflare and approximately 70% of traffic to directly to CloudFront, the old flow. When I say approximately, because you can't fully control how DNS attribute different roles to user, but we were able somehow split users. Then, with the help of data analytic teams, we were able to cluster users with some similar behavior and some similar metadata like country, speed of internet, and so on. And then we were able to compare those clusters and prove that by doing this additional layer of protection, we do not harm our business for more than 1%. And well, for us, it was acceptable price to protect ourselves against DDoS attack. And now we go to the last question. Where we can save our energy, where we can save on development. Maybe we should not A/B test even something. I should say that for most companies, product people saw A/B testing as a simple flying wheel. You launch more A/B tests. As a result, you have more significant positive tests. Then you, as a result, increase revenue and hire more product teams that will launch more A/B tests. So that's how you drive the business. The problems comes with the fact that more significantly positive tests not always means that it will increase the revenue. And now I'll explain why. If we say, look on the part of our experiment distribution, let's say 100% those are experiments that we launched. And let's say we are a super product efficient company and we have 30% significance rate, and using p-value of 5%. That basically means that you will also have 5% false positive rate. And that means that actual true positive rate, the experience that actually helps your business to grow, are 30%, minus 5%, 25%. So this scenario are really positive. 25% of true positive experiment is great for product company. But that's not always the case. So during the last year, when we tried to improve the efficiency of A/B testing in Preply, first, of course, we checked the significance rate of the whole company, and it was way above the false positive rate, so it was great. But the next step, we decided to check it on the per team level. And then we realized that approximately 40% of product teams had the significance rate below the false positive rate, which basically means that they actually had some significantly positive tests, but there is very little chances that they actually impact the business. Having this knowledge, we are able to refocus teams on the part of products where they have enough traffic and opportunities to drive the business, and now they can do it efficiently. But that was a lesson number 4 for us, that it's critical to keep the significance ratio healthy, and otherwise you can just waste part of your resources doing something that is not valuable to anyone. And when we are talking about checking significance ratio, the first step definitely to check is on company level. Then you check it on the per team level. And if you A/B test very extensively, you can do it even on per experiment type, like doing some copyright A/B test, design A/B test, or ranking A/B test. You can check what type of A/B tests are really efficient and bring the money to the company. So keeping all that in mind, I should say that definitely A/B testing have some limitation and cost. First of all, it's traffic. It's the most crucial part of A/B testing. If you have no enough traffic, you're unable to do some meaningful conclusion after that. The second point is that holdouts group are actually accumulate tech debt on some period of time. In long run, it definitely will help you to keep your system simpler, but on a short run, let's say half a year or year, you will increase the complexity of your product. The third, less explicit part is that A/B testing actually increases the cost of infrastructure. Because in our case, we have more versions of website than users on the internet. So the only way to cache is on a per user base, which is way less efficient. And the fourth part is that some technical changes are actually hard to A/B test, and sometimes you should leverage, does it make sense to invest a complex experiment or not? But all this is a price that we pay to maximize revenue in the measurable and scientific way. And it helps us to keep our project as simple as possible on the long run, because we avoid scaling something that is actually doesn't help business to grow. And at the same time, it protects ourselves once we try to do some maintenance and refactorings, because we know that if we'll harm the business, we'll always be able to revert the changes. At the same time, if we do some in-depth analysis, we can figure out where we waste our resources doing something meaningless and refocus team on doing something that actually helps the business. And the last that I love the most is A/B testing actually helps to protect against highest paid person opinion. Any idea you have can be validated, and the good idea will be scaled and negative ideas will be killed. So to sum up what I said today, if you haven't started A/B testing yet, you definitely should try it, because I believe it's wonderful tools that will protect you against a lot of failures in the future. But for those who already do an A/B test, if you have possibility to do only one thing, just start with implementing this holdout group to measure the cumulative effect, because it will empower you with enough data to drive some changes in your organization. The second step is try to compare the expected boost to actual boost, and if you observe the high discrepancies there, dive deeper. Maybe you scale too much inconclusive tests and not only increase the complexity of your product by for nothing, but as well harm the business. And at the same time, whenever it is possible, try to A/B test technical changes. Because if you'll have significantly positive result, you will be able to prove to business that it actually makes sense to invest more time in technical maintenance. But if you'll have a negative test, you'll be able to roll back your change and not harm the business. And finally, try to keep track of your scale ratio to avoid wasting your developers' time on doing something meaningless. And I believe that A/B testing is a powerful gun to defend the product simplicity and achieve the best business outcome. But as with any guide, you should be trained to use it. And I'm sure that the right use of those tools will protect you against building another Starship that will never fly again. And let's build the habit to always challenge ourselves. Does what I do really make sense and make customer happy and business helps business to grow? And I'm sure that if we'll do that daily, we'll never experience the same level of frustration as engineers of Starship did. That's it. I'm really open for questions, and I see a lot of them, and I'll try to address them in a moment. And I should say that we always hire. We have a position for SRE team, we have a position for software architect team, and we have position in experimentation team. So if you're interested, just scan QR code, and I'll be happy to talk with you. Yeah.
Thank you very much, Igor, for a great talk. Sorry. Okay.
Thank you.
Can you hear me?
Yep. Do you hear me?
Great. Yeah, absolutely. Do you want to have a Q&A session in English or Ukrainian?
I prefer to go in English because I see most of questions in English, and I'm really grateful for that.
Okay, fine. So I will ask the English question first, and then translate the Russian ones. Do you run CI with all the A/B tests? Because there is a competitor explosion problem, and I've seen different ideas on how to overcome this. In case you have hundreds of A/B tests and features included in your code, it increases the failure rate of a specific combination of these features. So could you explain this, please?
Yeah, that's a great question. I guess we faced this question a couple of years back when we significantly increased the rate of A/B testing. So the first point I should make that if we're talking about unit test, we try to A/B test both flows of if clause. So unit test ensure all test coverage. If we are talking about integration test and end-to-end test, we basically keep our end-to-end test covering the default flow, so meaning a group of each test. So we have all our integration tests for a group. Once the flag being scaled, the test rewritten to the new versions that have been scaled. Why we don't care about other versions of the website? First of all, because it's impossible to write that number of tests, because if you have 100 of tests, it's 2 in the power of 100. You have no so many engineers in the whole world to write those tests. And the second and most important point, that we A/B test them. It means that after deploy, users do not see our changes. They start seeing it once we enable the flag. And once we enable the flag, we have the systems that I described that automatically track the errors and latency. And once we have observed some bad behaviors there, we have alert and being able to react.
Thank you. And the next question is, the architecture of the tech solution for A/B testing, what do you use? It's something you have built in-house, or it's something that you have used like a service? And what is the MVP solution for A/B testing if you're building it yourself?
Yeah, good question. So we started A/B testing in Preply as our own solution. Then several years afterwards, we estimated different solutions that were on the market, and we end up that we have so many specific requirements that are specific for our company that there is no reason to outsource it somewhere. So all our architecture is fully built in, and we never tried third-party solution, only as an MVP. The architecture looks quite simple. The first thing, you have a user splitter. So you need somehow attribute user to a different group. You can use hash function, or you can use randomizer function there. The second part, you have to ensure you have some data warehouse where you store attribution user to specific experiments, so that further you'll be able to analyze that. And third, you need some maybe transactional database or data warehouse where you have your business information, business data that you'll be able to attribute to group A and group B, and then compare which group performs better. So as a minimum approach, I would say it's enough. Then, of course, it definitely makes sense to build some tool that will do automatic analysis of each experiment, so that avoids biased opinion of each data analytic or product manager that evaluates their own A/B test. And on top of that, you can build a lot of monitoring, alerts, and so on. But I should say that once I built the first version of A/B testing, it was not in Preply, it was in a different company. I spent approximately a week or maybe a week and a half to launch the first A/B test. So it's a rather simple exercise, and I'm sure that people there are more than qualified to build that.
Thank you. The next question would be, how quickly do you get the results of new A/B tests you have launched?
Good question as well. We had some long discussion a couple of years ago about that, because the first approach was we'll just launch A/B test until it gets significant, but it's definitely wrong from a statistical point of view. Another approach was we should calculate the sample size before experiment launch and run that amount of days. And that's how statistics say us what we should do. But here is a problem, that usually it's huge overhead for product managers to make a guess how much this experiment should impact the business and then calculate the sample size. So after doing some pre-calculation, we decided that for us, the best approach is to check experiment result on the 3rd week and on the 5th week. So we check on the 21st day and 35th day. If experiment became significant of either 21st or 35th day, we claim it as significantly positive. Otherwise, we assume it as inconclusive. In case it's inconclusive on 35th day, but potentially we see good track, we can discuss, recalculate the needed sample size, and relaunch the experiment with prolonged duration.
Thank you very much. I think it's a good moment to move into Discord discussion. And there are lots of more questions people would like to discuss with you. And our time slot in this stream is over. Thank you very much for your talk and information you've shared with us. And waiting for you in the Discord chat.
Yeah, sure. Thank you. I'll be there soon. Bye.